Somewhere underground right now, there's a colony of ants that has been continuously alive, expanding and functioning since before your great-grandparents were even born. Not a single colony, in fact, but one that stretches, in some cases, across entire continents made up of billions of individuals who have never once met each other, but somehow never fight. This isn't science fiction. It's one of the strangest, most successful biological phenomena ever discovered, and most people have walked right past evidence of it without ever realizing what they were looking at. Welcome to the bizarre, almost unbelievable world of ant supercolonies that simply refuse to die. To understand why this matters, you first need to understand what an ant colony actually is. A single colony typically starts with one queen, who lays every single egg, and her daughters, the worker ants, who do absolutely everything else, foraging, building, defending, and caring for the next generation. Biologists often describe a colony as a superorganism, a single cohesive unit made of thousands or even millions of individual bodies, functioning together almost like cells within one larger living creature. No individual ant has a brain capable of understanding the whole picture, yet the colony as a whole behaves with apparent intelligence and purpose. Normally, different ant colonies, even of the exact same species, are fierce rivals. Workers from one nest will violently attack workers from another nest on contact, instantly recognizing them as outsiders through chemical scent cues on their exoskeletons. This aggressive territorial behavior is, in fact, the evolutionary norm across almost the entire ant world, which makes what happened with one particular species, originally from South America, even more remarkable. Somewhere along the way, something fundamental changed about how these ants recognized friend from foe, and the consequences of that change would eventually span an entire planet, quietly, without anyone planning it. The species in question is the Argentine ant, a small, unremarkable-looking brown insect native to South America. In its original habitat, it behaves exactly like most other ant species, forming separate competing colonies that fight aggressively over territory, just as evolutionary theory would predict for any normal social insect. But sometime in the 19th century, Argentine ants began hitching rides on cargo ships traveling around the world, accidentally transported in soil, plant material, and shipping containers headed for ports in North America, Europe, and beyond. And something strange happened once they arrived in these completely new environments. Because the ants that successfully invaded these new continents came from a relatively small founding population, genetic diversity among them collapsed dramatically. With far less genetic variation, the chemical scent signatures that normally let ants distinguish their own colony from a rival nest became nearly identical across enormous populations. The result was almost unprecedented in the natural world. Ants that, by all evolutionary logic, should have been from completely separate, independent colonies, simply stopped fighting each other. They began cooperating instead, sharing resources, defending shared territory together, effectively merging into something far larger than any single natural colony had ever been before. Scientists have since documented an absolutely staggering example of this phenomenon along the Mediterranean coast of Europe, where researchers identified a single Argentine ant supercolony stretching over 6,000 kilometers from northern Italy through southern France and into Spain, making it quite possibly the largest cooperative animal society ever recorded on Earth. An even larger supercolony exists in California, where Argentine ants have spread continuously along hundreds of miles of coastline. Researchers performing aggression tests, deliberately placing ants from opposite ends of this enormous range together in controlled experiments, found that they greeted each other peacefully instead of fighting, despite having never been anywhere near one another. How exactly did a small South American ant manage to colonize entire coastlines on different continents? The answer largely comes down to human trade and transportation. Global shipping routes in the 19th and 20th centuries unknowingly served as highways for countless invasive species, and the Argentine ant proved exceptionally good at hitchhiking. Unlike many invasive species that struggle to establish themselves in unfamiliar environments, Argentine ants are remarkably adaptable. They thrive in disturbed urban landscapes, suburban gardens, and agricultural areas, habitats that humans inadvertently create everywhere we build cities and farms, giving these ants an enormous range of available territory to expand into. Once established in the new region, the lack of internal competition between colonies became a massive evolutionary advantage. Without wasting energy fighting neighboring nests, these ants could direct nearly all of their collective effort toward expanding territory, gathering food, and simply outcompeting native ant species for the same limited resources. Similar supercolony phenomena have actually been documented in other ant species as well, including certain populations of fire ants and the destructive yellow crazy ant, suggesting that this loss of colony recognition through reduced genetic diversity might be a more general evolutionary pattern than scientists initially assumed when Argentine ants were first studied. Now here's where things get even stranger. Unlike a single tree or a single animal, a supercolony like this has no defined lifespan in the way we normally think about it. Individual worker ants live only a few months to a couple of years, but the colony itself simply doesn't have to die when they do. Argentine ant colonies typically have multiple queens rather than just one, and new queens are continuously produced to replace older ones as they eventually pass away. As long as the colony keeps producing new queens and new workers faster than individuals are lost, the supercolony itself can theoretically continue indefinitely with no natural endpoint. This is fundamentally different from how we usually think about an organism's life cycle. A supercolony isn't really one continuous body in the way a human body is. It's more like an ongoing process, a pattern that persists and renews itself across generations, even as every single individual within it is eventually replaced entirely. Researchers have studied exactly how this peaceful cooperation actually works at a chemical level. Ants identify colony members using a complex blend of hydrocarbon chemicals coating their exoskeleton, essentially a unique scent signature. In a normal population, genetic diversity creates many different scent signatures, and ants attack anything that smells unfamiliar. But in these massive supercolonies, the founding population was so genetically narrow that nearly everyone across thousands of miles ended up smelling almost identical to one another. From an ant's perspective, every other ant it encounters within the supercolony simply smells like family, regardless of how physically distant their birthplace actually was. This shared chemical identity allows worker ants to move freely between different nests within the supercolony, share food resources across vast distances, and collectively defend territory as one unified force rather than countless separate competing units. It's essentially a society held together not by communication or memory, but by smell alone. Entomologists studying these supercolonies have actually used genetic sequencing to trace the exact origin point of various invasive populations, sometimes pinpointing the precise region in Argentina that a particular European or North American supercolony originally came from, essentially reconstructing an invisible migration story written entirely in DNA carried across oceans by accident. Unfortunately, this incredible biological success story has come at a real ecological cost. Argentine ant supercolonies are now classified among the most damaging invasive species on the planet. By forming such enormous unified forces, they're able to overwhelm and displace native ant species almost everywhere they establish themselves. In California specifically, the spread of Argentine ant supercolonies has been directly linked to declining populations of native horned lizards, which depend heavily on native harvester ants as their primary food source. As Argentine ants displace these native ants, the lizards that depend on them for survival simply have less and less to eat. Similar disruptions to local ecosystems have been documented across multiple continents, affecting everything from native plant pollination patterns to seed dispersal systems that many other species rely on. A single quiet biological accident, genetic diversity collapsing in a founding population, ended up reshaping entire ecosystems on the other side of the planet. So the next time you see a trail of small brown ants marching across a sidewalk or through your garden, there's a real chance you're looking at a tiny fragment of something almost unimaginably vast. A single supercolony stretching for hundreds or even thousands of miles, continuously alive for well over a century. It's a strange reminder that the boundaries we usually use to define an individual living thing, where one body ends and another begins, aren't always as clear-cut as they seem in the natural world. Sometimes, an entire civilization of creatures can function as one continuous, ageless, sprawling organism. If this changed how you'll look at ants the next time you see one, hit subscribe next time. We'll learn something interesting.